Yeah guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to solve linear equations. First of all, what are linear equations? Linear equations are equations that have one dependent variable. What are dependent variables? Dependent variables are like d or x. They are unknowns in equation, and they are what you substitute into the equation that makes the equation true. In other words, d here will be any number that if we substitute into this equation will equals to what? 4. That if we put a number here that we can add 2 to it and multiply it that same number by 3, or multiply that number by 3 and then add 2 to it, we get what? 4. That is what the dependent variable. So here we have what? X, and x simply means any number we can put or multiply by 6 and add 4 to it. That will give you what? Negative 10. So let's start. The first thing you want to do is what? You want to arrange the equation in such a way that the dependent variable is on the left side of the equation while any other thing or other number is on the right side. Here we have 3d plus 2 is equals to 4. So we want to remove this 2 from this place so that we are left with only what? 3d. So how do we do that? Since 2 is added to this place, whatever you do to the left side of the equation, you do it to the right side of the equation. So if we subtract 2 from this place, that is, we subtract 2 to remove the 2, then we also subtract 2 from the right side, and that's exactly what we did here. 3d plus 2 minus 2, that will give you 0, because 2 minus 2 will give you 0, is equals to 4 minus 2. 4 minus 2 will give you what? 2. And then we have what? 3d is equals to 2. Now, the next thing we want to do is what? Whenever something is combined to a dependent variable, whenever a number is combined to a dependent variable by multiplication, what you do is what? You divide both sides by that number. Here you can see that 3d d is combined to 3 by multiplication because we have 3d. So what do? We divide both sides by what? 3. So once we divide both sides by 3, we are going to be able to eliminate 3 from this place, and then we are going to have what? 2 over 3. That's our answer. I hope that was straight and clear. Let's go to number 2. Here we have an equation that is a little bit different. We have 6x plus 4 is equals to 16 minus 26. We want to make sure that what? Everything except from the dependent variable is on the right hand side. So here we can simply break it down by saying 16 minus 26 will give you what? Negative 10. So we have a simplified equation like this. What do we do after that one? The next thing we want to do is what? We want to remove this 4 from this place, and what? So that we can have only 6x on the left hand side. So remove 4 from this place, we are going to have what? 6x plus 4 minus 4. Since 4 is added to this place, since we have plus 4 here, we know we are going to subtract it. Let's say we have minus 4, then we are going to add 4 to both sides. But here we have plus 4, so we are going to subtract it. So we are going to have 4 minus 4, that's going to give you 0, is equals to negative 10 minus 4. Now, one thing you need to know is what? A negative number, when you have something like this, negative 10 minus another number that's just like this, it is going to add together, but it's going to have a negative sign. Negative plus negative will give you, we sum up the two numbers that are involved, but the answer will have a negative sign. That's why we have what? 10 plus 4 will give you what? 14, but then we have what? A negative sign. You can see that minus plus minus is summing up the two numbers, but we have a negative sign. So what is next for us to do? The next thing we need to do is what? Since we have what 6x here, we want to eliminate this 6. And the only way we can do that is by what? Dividing both sides by 6. So we have what? X is equals to negative 14 over 6. You break this down, we're going to have what? Negative 7 over 3. And this is our answer. So that is how we go about what? Solving. Let's undo more problems. Now, we move on to number 3. Here, number 3, we have what? 4x plus 15x plus 3 is equals to negative 12. Remember, the first thing we want to do is what? Ensure that only the dependent variable is on the left-hand side, while every other thing is on the right-hand side. So, we are going to have what? 19x. By the time we add these two together, 4x plus 15x, we are going to have what? 19x. Then plus 3 minus 3 is equals to 12 minus 3. You must have seen how we did it in number 2 and number 1. The reason why we subtract what 3 from both sides, we subtracted 3 from both sides, is because of what? We want only the dependent variable on the left hand side. So this one, let's assume the number here was negative, then we are going to add 3 to both sides. But since the number here is positive, we are going to do what? Subtract 3 from both sides. So subtracting 3 from both sides, we are going to have what? 19x. 3 minus 3 will give you 0, therefore there's nothing here. Is equals to what? Remember what I said, when we have what? Two negative signs added to each other, the numbers will sum up, but we are going to have a negative sign in front. That's why we have what? Negative 12 minus 3 is giving us negative 15, which is the number just summed up, and we just have a negative sign because of what? It is negative numbers that are added together. So what do we do next? The next thing we want to do is what? We divide both sides by 19, since what? 19 is the only thing that is obstructing s from becoming the subject of formula, and since it's combined to this place by multiplication, what we do is we divide. So we're going to have what? Negative 15 over 19. 19 is a prime number, so there's no way we can break this fraction down. We go to number 4. Number 4 here, you must have some understanding on fractions and how to handle the denominator of fractions. I'm not going to go into so much details because I've done a video on that. You can watch that on my channel. Here we have 1 over 5 or 1 over 5 times x, because if you assume the whole of this thing as a single number, because this is actually a decimal number, so if you assume the whole of this number as single, is simply what? 1 over 5 times x plus 2 over 6 is equals to what? 18. How do we solve this? What we want to do is what? Since there is no number that can go in what? 5 and 6, the LCM or the common denominator is simply what? 30. Another way we can go about this is looking for a number that can be divided by both 5 and 6, because that's one of the characteristics of common denominators. They are just numbers that all the numbers that are gotten from are what? Factor of that number, which means they can divide that number without a remainder. That's why we have 30 here. So after looking for the LCM, you know how to handle fractions. If you don't know, you check my video. But a brief explanation on this is what? You say 30, which is the common denominator, divided by 5 here, that will give you what? 6. So you multiply the numerator by that. This one, when you want to multiply fractions, all you just need to do is what? The numerator multiply the numerator and the denominator multiply the denominator. So here is the same thing as what? X over 1. So if you multiply x times 1, that's going to give you what? X, and 5 times the denominator of x, which is 1, that will give you 5. So that's why we have what? 6x here. Let me repeat myself again. We have what? 30 divided by 5, that will give you 6. 6 times 1 will give you 6, and 6 times x will give you what? 6x. Here we have 30 divided by what? 6, that will give you 5. 5 times 2, that will give you 10, is equals to what? 18 over 1. What do you do when you have this kind of situation? What you need to do is very, very simple. You just cross multiply. So then we end up with an equation that is now looking something like this, but not even like this, but a straightforward equation. You see what I'm talking about now. You can see what we have here. So 30 times 18 will give you 540, and 6x plus 10 we come to times 1 we give you what? 6x plus 10. Now you can see after cross multiplying now, we have what? The dependent variable on the right hand side plus 10, and what? The number is on the left hand side. This does not mean as it is the same thing. If we flip this thing around, we are simply going to have 6x. We are going to have 6x plus 10 on the left hand side is equals to 540. But you need to have it at the back of your mind that they don't mean different things. They are the same thing. So what do? You collect like terms now, because now you want the dependent variable on one side of the equation. So we want to eliminate this 10 from this side, and since this 10 is added to this side of the equation, we just do what? Subtract 10 from both sides now to eliminate this 10. So that's why we have what? 540 minus 10 is equals to what? 6x. What do? We simplify this. 540 minus 10 will give you 530. This is equals to what? 6x. What do we do after that? What we do is what? We divide both sides by 6, as 6 is the only number that is obstructing the dependent variable from standing alone. And since it is multiplied to the dependent variable, then we divide both sides by 6 so that we can get our final answer. Once we divide both sides by 6, we have 530 divided by 6. That will give you 265 over 3. And that is how we solve that one. Let's move on to number 5. 3 over 4 times x plus 1 over 6 is equals to what? 14. Remember, you need to undo the fractions first. Or you can collect like terms, but first of all, let's learn to undo the fraction first, because it is easier that way. Here we have 4 and we have 6 on the denominator of the fractions. What do? We need to look for a number that 4 can go evenly into and 6 can go evenly into. So we are going to have that number as what? 12, because 4 can go into 12 and 6 can also go into 12. So what do? We say what? After doing that, we say 12 divided by 4. That will give you what? 3, because 3 times 4 is 12. Then we use our answer to multiply the numerator of that fraction. Because we are using the denominator 4 to divide the common denominator 12, that will give us 3. Then we multiply the numerator 3 by that answer. So we have 3 times 3, that will give you 9. 9 times x, that will give you 9x. Then we say 12 divided by 6, which is the denominator of the second fraction. We are going to have 2, and then multiply the numerator by that answer. So we are going to have 2 on the numerator of the second fraction. Here, what we do next is what? We cross multiply, so that we can have an equation that is without any fraction. Then we can go ahead and solve. We are going to have what? 14 times 12, that will give you what? 168. So we have 9x plus 2 is equals to what? 168 after cross multiplying, because this is the same thing as what? 14 over 1. And when you multiply the whole of this thing by 1, it's still going to give you the same thing. So we have what? 9x plus 2 is equals to 168. What do we do next? The next thing we want to do is what? We want to eliminate these 2 from this side. And as you can see, the sign in front of the 2 is plus. So we need to subtract 2 from both sides. So we can eliminate these 2. So we are going to have 9x plus 2 minus 2 is equals to 168 minus 2. So we end up with 9x is equals to what? 166. You divide both sides by 9 since 9 is the only thing obstructing s from becoming the subject of formula, and it is combined to x by multiplication, so we divide both sides by 9. So we are going to have 166 divided by 9 and we get our answer. Let's go to number 6. Here we have 1 over 2 plus 1 over 3x is equals to what? 12. Now, unlike all the old examples we've been handling, you can see that what here, the dependent variable x is at the denominator here. It's not at the numerator, just like all other equations that we've handled in this lesson, but the process for solving it is the same. We have what? 1 over 2 plus 1 over 3x is equals to 12. What do we do? Let's handle the what? The denominator first. Now, how do you handle the denominator? We need to look for a number as usual that can be divided by 2 and divided by 3x. So 6x can be divided by 2 and can also be divided by what? 3x, because 6x divided by 3x will give you what? 2. And 6x divided by 2 will give you what? 3x. In other words, remember during the lesson I said if there's nothing that can go in the 2 denominator, that is their prime numbers, you simply multiply them together to get your what? Common denominator. So what do we do after that? Just like we've been discussing, we say what? 6x, which is the common denominator, divided by what? 2. That will give you what? 3x. Then we say 3x times the numerator. We have what? 3x. That's 3x times 1 will give you what? 3x. Here we have what? 6x divided by 3x. That will give you 2. 2 times 1 will give you what? 2. This is equals to 12. What do we do when we get to this stage? We simply what? Cross multiply. So we can have an equation that looks like this, and it's easier to solve that way. When we cross multiply, we are going to have what? 72x. So we end up with 3x plus 2 is equals to 72x. What do we do after that? We simply what? Collect like terms. That is, we want the what? The whole of the dependent variable on one side of the equation and every other thing on the other side. So what do? We can subtract 72x from both sides. So we are going to have what? 3x minus 72x. Then since we have plus here, we want this one to go to the other side. We simply subtract 2 from both sides. So that's why we have negative 2 here. Another way you can do this is just by what? Subtracting 3. Since we have 3 here, if you subtract 3 from both sides, we are going to have what? 2 on this side. Then we are going to have 72x minus 3x. But we did it this way, notwithstanding, it will give you the same answer. 3x minus 72x, that will give you negative 69x. This is equals to what? Negative 2. 69, negative 69 is the only number obstructing s from becoming the subject of formula. So divide both sides by what? Negative 69. Dividing both sides by negative 69, we are going to have what? 2 over 69, because negative sign divided by negative sign will just give you a positive sign. Minus 1 divided by minus 1 will give you what? 1. Because the negative sign will cancel out. Negative signs will cancel out. So that is exactly how you solve linear equations involving, whether it is straightforward or it is involving fraction, just like this. There are more complicated problems that we are going to deal with. But for now, understand the basic or the nitty-gritty, which is what I've explained just now. Thank you so much.